And far beyond the Twitter community, people are talking about the man who shot the Florida teen. Police have not arrested Neighborhood Watch volunteer George Zimmerman, who says he acted in self-defense. Criminal defense attorney Holly Hughes is here, as well as Alex Manning. She's a senior instructor at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. Thank you both very much. First, I'm going to go to you, Holly, about the stand your ground law here. It says a person can use deadly force if that person is threatened, but why doesn't this necessarily apply in this case?
Because in this case, the shooter was the initial aggressor. He pursued Trayvon Martin after that young man walked away. He was doing nothing but walking down a street. George Zimmerman is in his car when he sees him. He stops his car, gets out, and goes after Trayvon. You cannot be the initial aggressor. You can't go pick a fight for the purpose of beating somebody or shooting them or killing them. So that's not what happened here. If he was being attacked and Trayvon was coming after him, that'd be a whole different story. But we know from the 911 tape, Don, that's not what happened. The police specifically told him, we don't need you to follow him.
We're going to talk more about this case, but there are reports now from the attorney, Mr. Sooner, Craig Sooner, who spoke out and said, hey, listen, this was, in fact, Trayvon was the aggressor. My client has bloodied and all of that and was beaten. What do you make of those reports?
Well, I got to tell you, it makes my eyebrows raise because we didn't hear those things initially. We're now hearing, oh, he had a broken nose and he had a gash on the back of his head. Head wounds are bleeders, okay? If you punch somebody hard enough to break their nose, you are gushing blood all over the place. If you have a head wound in the back, you are gushing blood. So when they showed up on the scene, the police officers, there is a dead teenager on the ground who's unarmed. There's a man with a gun saying, yeah, I shot him. And then he's gushing blood. If he had said to the police officers right then and there, he attacked me, they would have called an ambulance and they would have transported him. They don't want to let him walk off the scene because maybe they're facing a civil liability later on if something happens to him.
Alex, let's talk about the training that Neighborhood Watch people, captains, have to go through here.
Okay. Neighborhood Watch and the Citizens Police Academy are really set up to bridge the gap between citizens and police agencies, to let agencies know what we can do for our citizens, and citizens tell the police agencies what we need from you. It's to familiarize them with police procedures and things that police officers do on a day-to-day basis, and also when they're investigating a crime. When you set up a police academy, this familiarization at the end of every day, no matter what topic you cover, the last thing you say is, you are not a police officer. You do not have the powers of the arrest, and basically, don't do this on your own. Call us. Which is
essentially what the 911, the person on the other end of the 911 call said, are you following him? He says, yes, we don't need you to do that. Is that correct?
Exactly. As if you see someone driving drunk on the road. Get the tag number, the description of the car, tell them which direction you're going, then back off. Your safety is important.
Let the people who are licensed to do it handle it. I want you, speaking of the 911 calls, I want you to listen to a clip of sound. It's from George Zimmerman's 911 call. Many people at CNN have repeatedly listened to this part of the 911 call. We've had the sound enhanced, but there is no consensus on whether Zimmerman used a racial slur. It may be offensive to some people, but we're going to play it. Take a listen.
I have not listened to this portion of the 911 tape at all. I just want to hear it raw right now. If you can play maybe 10 seconds before it, and let's listen.
Okay.
Down towards the entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
All right, did we hear it? I didn't hear it in that thing.
I didn't hear it, but I got to tell you, my ears are bad.
Let's do it. Can we do it one more time? Because I think we cut it off at the very end. Play it one more time, please.
I have not listened to this portion of the 911 tape at all. I just want to hear it raw right now. If you can play maybe 10 seconds before it, and let's listen.
Okay.
Down towards the entrance of the neighborhood.
Okay. Which entrance is that he's heading towards?
The back entrance.
Okay, that was it at the very end. The sound has been enhanced again. If you hear it, some people are saying that he's saying effing Boons, or just say effing Coons. Is that what people are saying?
Yeah, just say it. It is what it is. Yeah. If that's what you think he said, it's offensive, but it comes from him.
Does that change it in any way? What kind of case this makes it?
You know why, Don? Because here's the thing. Whenever you have a crime, we always want to know, what did the defendant do? Did he shoot this person? Did he, what was the act he committed? When you attack somebody based solely on their race, religion, sexuality, that puts you in a whole different ballgame. That is a hate crime. And at that point, we are asking a jury to get into the mind of the defendant, not just what did he do, but why did he do it? Because it is so much more insidious. You know, you're in a bar fight, things getting mad, you know, you punch somebody, that's one thing. But when you go out looking to victimize someone simply based on the color of their skin, that is a hate crime. We could see federal charges here if, in fact, the prosecutors agree that they heard the same thing you did on that tape.
Let's look at a copy, look at the website. I believe this is a website of the Neighborhood Watch, and it says this is not vigilante justice on the website, not the vigilante police, it's a Neighborhood Watch. So, Alex, my question is, what kinds of force are citizen police supposed to use before when apprehending someone or when checking on someone? Can they use a firearm?
Well, citizens, whether citizens police or just a citizen period, should never use lethal force unless they are in immediate danger or they're protecting someone else from immediate danger. They're not held to the same standards as a police officer, which they used to teach the use of force continuum, and now they've went to a different a case law that came out where you look at the totality of circumstances. But he was not a police officer. He was a regular person who was asked to keep an eye on the neighborhood. And even you usually as police officers are taught to meet force with the same amount, but you go to the next step. If you're hitting me, I'm maybe going to use my pepper spray or my baton. I'm not going to shoot you because you're doing that. But as a citizen, you need to do what it takes to get you safely away from that. He's never really authorized to use it unless he's in immediate harm to protect himself.
All right.
I don't really see that here.
All right. Alex, Holly, stand by. Thank you very much. Next, we'll go live to Sanford, Florida to hear directly from members of the community under the national spotlight. They are watching and listening to this discussion, and they're going to weigh in just 2 minutes. Welcome back to our special coverage. Trayvon Martin killing here on CNN Newsroom. The Sanford, Florida community, well, it's in the national spotlight right now. Not a comfortable place to be in a story like this one. We wanted to give people there a chance to share their thoughts about the Trayvon Martin case in their own words, as a matter of fact. And our George Howell standing by with people who live and work in Sanford. George, what are they saying to you?
Well, Don, what happened here in Sanford touched a nerve in this community, obviously, in the country and around the world. And right now we have a group of people here, just a show of hands of how many people were at the rally just a few days ago. So the majority of people. And we were talking a few minutes ago, just watching the show, we were all watching the show, Don, talking about the issues that really stood out. And if you would tell me, first of all, your name again, please.
My name is Joseph Lias.
Joseph, and tell me, we were talking, what stood out to you in the show as we were watching?
I think that, you know, again, we need to make sure that we understand that the major issue is actually an investigation and an arrest. I think everyone within the community feels that there is probable cause for that. And I think that, you know, we need to maintain that focus.
So, but the fact that George Zimmerman was not arrested, that's really the main point as well.
That has touched off, you know, the movement, so to speak. And I think that movement will continue until there is an arrest. And because we have to be careful about declaring open season on our children. You can't do that as a society.
Thank you. And we were also speaking, there was something in the show that really stuck with you. What was it, if you'd stand and say your name?
Kenneth Bentley.
Thank you, Kenneth.
The biggest thing that stayed with me was the solidarity with everybody. Everybody came out on one accord to fight one thing, and that was the arrest for Mr. Zimmerman. And also, Mr. Trayvon Martin is the big screen name on this case, but there's been several African-American boys in this community that have been murdered, and the residents feel that the police department has done nothing with the investigation. He's the major attraction on this screen tonight, but it's been 4 or 5 other African-American men in Sanford that have been violently murdered, and nobody's been arrested, and nothing has been done. And so people are under the impression that it's just status quo. It's just a black man, there'll be a cold case, and we won't talk about it next week.
Now, the police chief, and you all are aware that the police chief has stepped aside temporarily. Just a show of hands, if you would, is that a good start? Does that make sense for people? A show of hands for people who agree, or?
There needs to be more.
Okay. No? And your thoughts, if you would, please.
Well,
you stand for
yeah, well, frankly, I'm not sure what temporary means. And I think that, you know, as we just heard, the issue goes a little deeper than just a single case. The issue, you know, anytime you get more than one, you're really speaking of something that can be considered a pattern, right? And a pattern, in order to break a pattern, then I think you need to make some fundamental changes within the department, right? And the community expects that.
Thank you. And we also reached out to someone who would speak for George Zimmerman, but that person has not shown up at this point. But again, a lot of reaction here with what happened here in Sanford, Don.
Can you ask George, that group there, by a show of hands, how many people think there is an issue with the Sanford Police Department? Is there a race issue in their estimation?
Don asks a question. He wants to know how many here in this group think that there is a race issue with the Sanford Police Department. A show of hands of people who think that that is the case. Thank you. And clearly the police department taking steps. The police chief has stepped aside temporarily. What happens next in the hands of the city manager at this point as he waits, Don, to see what happens with this federal investigation of this case and the police department.
George, was that a show of hands for everyone? Just about everyone there?
Indeed. It seemed to be, again, another show of hands with this particular issue with the police department. If you show us again, please.
Yeah, that seems to be everyone. George, thank you very much.
One quick... Okay.
Thanks very much. So we're going to get back to you. No worries, George. We're going to come back to you more with George in a little bit here on CNN, so stand by. Trayvon Martin's death is sparking outrage among Americans, regardless of color, regardless of race, ethnicity. We're going to talk about that with anti-racism writer and activist Tim Wise. That's next. And I want you to take a look at these women. They are moms of young black men. Why they believe they need to give their sons special advice so they don't end up dying young like Trayvon Martin.